You've probably never thought about which direction your bedroom faces. Most modern buildings don't care. Architects orient them around the street grid, the property line, whatever gets the most square footage out of the lot. Direction is an afterthought. But if you had lived almost anywhere on Earth before the age of writing, the most important building in your life pointed the same way as every other important building around it. Not roughly the same way, not somewhere in that general direction. The same way, measured with a precision that would take modern archaeologists centuries to fully decode. And the cultures doing this had never met each other. They were separated by oceans, by thousands of years, by every possible barrier to communication. And yet they all made the same choice. They all faced east. In Portugal and southern Spain, archaeologist Michael Hoskin measured over 725 ancient dolmen tombs, stone burial chambers built more than 4,000 years ago. He found that 702 of them, more than 97%, faced within the range of the sunrise in the east or just south of it. 97%. That's not a preference, that's a rule, and these weren't monumental temples with priesthoods and written records. These were small burial structures, built by scattered farming communities who almost certainly never spoke to each other, converging on the same architectural decision without ever comparing notes. So here's the obvious answer, the one that probably just occurred to you. Maybe they just liked sunlight. Maybe facing east meant your doorway caught the morning sun and that felt nice. Simple as that. Except it isn't that simple, because when you look closer at how these builders actually achieved their alignments, you find something that looks less like a vague preference and more like an exact science. Before the magnetic compass existed anywhere in the world, ancient builders had another tool, a straight stick planted upright in the ground. It's called a gnomon, and it works because of a simple fact about shadows. As the sun moves across the sky, the shadow of that stick grows and shrinks and swings across the ground. At solar noon, the exact midpoint of the day, that shadow reaches its shortest length and it points due north. Every time, anywhere on Earth, it costs nothing. It requires no metal, no magnetism, no technology beyond a stick and patience. And it means that any culture, anywhere, with enough willingness to stand still and watch shadows for a day, could find true cardinal direction with total accuracy. The compass wasn't in common use until around the year 1000. Humans were finding true north, and by extension true east, for thousands of years before that, using nothing but sunlight and geometry. Once you know that, the 97% stops looking like coincidence. It starts looking like a shared technique, discovered independently, over and over, by people solving the same problem. How do you point a building at something that isn't there yet? Because the sunrise isn't a place. It's an event. You're not aligning your temple with a landmark. You're aligning it with a moment that happens once a day and vanishes. And once ancient builders had that ability, some of them didn't stop at east. They got specific. Terrifyingly specific. Take the Temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak, in what's now Luxor, Egypt. Construction there stretched across more than 1,500 years, different pharaohs, different dynasties, different generations of builders working on the same site over a span of time longer than the entire history of most modern nations. And through all of that, through pylons and obelisks and the addition of the great hypostyle hall with its forest of stone columns, one thing never changed: the temple's central axis. Every new phase of construction respected the original alignment, because that alignment wasn't decoration, it was the point of the building. Once a year around December 21st, the winter solstice, the sun rises and its very first light travels down the entire length of Karnak's central axis, passing through gate after gate, hall after hall, until it reaches the innermost sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, and floods it with direct sunlight for a few brief minutes. On every other day of the year, that chamber sits in near total darkness. The building was engineered, across more than a millennium of construction by people who never knew each other, to stage a single moment of light on a single day of the year. That's not a religious gesture, that's an instrument. Karnak isn't just a temple, it's a 1,500-year construction project functioning as a calendar you could walk inside of. And the Egyptians weren't unique in treating orientation like precision engineering. Half a world away and 1,000 years earlier, the Romans had turned it into a ritual with a script. When Rome founded a new colony, the ceremony began with an augur, a prize. Whose entire job was reading the will of the gods in the sky. He would stand at the exact center of where the new city would rise at noon and extend his arms toward the sun. From that position, he established the cardinal axes of the entire settlement. Then came the plow. A priest would trace the city's outline into the earth using a bronze plowshare, cutting what the Romans called the sulcus primigenius, the first furrow, lifting the blade only at the points where gates would stand. Out of that ritual came the two great intersecting roads that defined every Roman city, the decumanus running east to west and the cardo running north to south crossing each other at the very center of town. The decumanus carried the everyday traffic of commerce. The cardo carried religious processions, function and cosmology cut into the ground with the same blade on the same day by the same hands. Sometimes the Romans got playfully specific about what exactly they were aligning to. In the city of Timgad, in what's now Algeria, the main east-west street wasn't pointed at a generic sunrise. It was calculated to point directly at the sunrise on September 18th, the birthday of the Emperor Trajan. The city itself became a monument to one man's existence, its main road firing like an arrow at the exact sunrise of the day he was born, every single year, for as long as the city stood. So by now you might think you've got the pattern locked down. East equals life, east equals the sun god, east equals the good direction, and every culture on earth agreed on it instinctively. And that's exactly the moment where the pattern breaks, in a way that actually proves the rule was real in the first place. In Cambodia in the 12th century, King Suryavarman II commissioned the largest religious monument on the planet, Angkor Wat. Every other major Khmer temple around it faces east, following the same convention as Karnak, as the dolmens, as nearly everything else in this story. Angkor Wat faces west, on purpose. The temple was dedicated to Vishnu, and in Hindu cosmology, the west carries a different symbolic weight. It's the direction of the setting sun, and by extension, the direction of death and the passage into the next world. Scholars believe Angkor Wat wasn't just a temple. It was built as Suryavarman's own funerary monument, a mausoleum disguised as the greatest religious structure of its age. And there's a second clue hidden in the architecture that confirms it. The stone carvings that wrap around the temple's walls proceed in a counterclockwise direction. In Brahminic funeral rituals, that's the exact reverse of how everything else is normally done. Clockwise for life, counterclockwise for death. Angkor Wat breaks the eastward rule in exactly the way you'd expect if the builders were using orientation as a language, because breaking the rule on purpose only means something if the rule was universally understood in the first place. There's one more twist, and it's the strangest one. The Hebrew temple tradition also built toward the east, but worshippers stood with their backs to the sunrise, facing west toward the Holy of Holies. Centuries later, early Christian church builders inherited the eastward orientation but flipped the relationship entirely. The congregation faced east, toward the rising sun, watching for the return of Christ from the east, according to some early sources. Same direction, same axis. Completely reversed meaning, layered on top of an older civilization's architecture, by people who'd never met the ones who built it that way first. So what does all of this actually add up to? Not one answer, but a layered one. Some of it was pure engineering, the shortest shadow at noon pointing reliably to true north, giving any culture on Earth a free, universal tool for finding direction. Some of it was theology, a sun god who had to be greeted at the exact moment of his return each morning, or in one case deliberately snubbed in favor of the setting sun of death. Some of it was raw human ego, an emperor's birthday sunrise, permanently fired down a Roman street 2,000 years after his death. And underneath all of it was something these builders shared that almost nobody alive today has, a working, intimate, daily relationship with the sky. They didn't need a calendar app to know what day it was. The building told them. The light told them. For thousands of years, across cultures that never spoke the same language or worshipped the same gods, humans kept arriving at the same conclusion through entirely separate paths, that the most important thing you could do with a building wasn't to shelter people inside it. It was to point it, with total precision, at the one event in the sky that returns every single day and means something different every single time. We don't build that way anymore. Most of us couldn't even tell you which direction our own front door faces,